Yeah, just a second. Is Brandon coming out?
He stopped by earlier today for 2 seconds. Did you have a good fourth? And then he left.
Yes. Just saw 12 names. It's a long list, isn't it? If nobody's.
You are lucky, you did it. See you, good, how are you?
Can I unplug this or do I disrupt things?
What is it? Let me see. This is her, these are her bags, so go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
You what? These are expensive. Not great. Having issues. Just take it one day at a time.
No, I do. He just finished up. He's on that one team. December 7th.
Where's he at?
Oh, is it even working? He's in Irvine right now. He goes around every 2 weeks. So.
I didn't have to use the utility system. Let me make sure I didn't.
Yeah, and right at the last minute, he came on and said no.
Yeah, he canceled the last one. We're not doing it tomorrow.
Okay. We'd like to welcome everyone to our South Weber City Council meeting at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, July the 9th, 2024. We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance by Councilman Halverson and then a prayer by Councilman Deals.
Please stand and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful that we could come here today as a group of citizens to plan out the future of our city and to listen to the public comments, listen to our own thoughts and opinions, and be able to come up with solutions that will be the best for the city and all those that live in it. Please bless, Father, all of our first responders, both here and abroad right now, that are fighting a number of the fires and facing danger. And these things we ask for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Blair and Joel. We'll begin with public comments. If you have a comment, we'd ask that you come up to the microphone, state your name and the city that you reside in. We'll allow you 3 minutes to speak and address your remarks to the entire council.
Arthur Grant, 2622 Deer Run Drive, South Weber. This comment I've already made in January. The reason I'm doing it is because DCSO is here, so maybe I can get your attention. In January or February this year, I had ridden the park and ride to Snow Basin. When I got back 3 hours, 4 hours later, my Subaru, the back window was shattered. Somebody probably beat it up. Anyway, so that comment I made over here. And then 4 or 5 days later, the glass guy came and repaired at my house, and he said, "Oh, other car, there was one other car also he repaired 3 days ago. So I don't know how many people contacted DCSO. I did, and a deputy came by and he took my report, but he said, I mean, it's obviously a loss. So the point being, I know they repaved the park and ride. It looks good, so they are paying attention. Why can't they hang 2 cameras, one on the park, area and one on the electric pole? And I think that will reduce such vandalism. Thank you. Maybe you have more pull and push than the city council, I guess, with the UDOT. That was the idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on. We've presentation. We have the sheriff's office here for the quarterly report. Sergeant Pope, we'll turn time to you. And your
Entourage.
man, we got a lot.
As you know, I'm Sergeant Pope. This is Elizabeth Pinto, and this is Sergeant Gary. Sergeant Gary is actually going to be taking over South Weber. I have been taking another assignment as K-9 unit sergeant and lead, and various other administrative things at our office. So I am sad to, after 7 years, kind of see it go. But Sergeant Gary here is very qualified, and he will do a great job here. I know it. He is very involved with being in the city and paying attention, just like I do. So you guys are getting a really good person to take over. So here's our Q2.
That sucks. I mean, it's great to, Duncan, just have to say, it really is. He has done fantastic for this city, and
also,
we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That really does mean a lot. Also, I do think that's a great idea. And I think if we can get cameras up there, I think that would be awesome. That would actually alleviate a lot of issues over there, I think. So thanks for bringing that up. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that, but let's see here. Why do I always have a problem with this every
I
time?
know, I thought.
It is on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Every time. Okay, so these are our citations. So our citation type is on the left, our totals on the right. Other citations, which is just kind of a generic catch-all, other than the ones we have listed, is 4. Moving violations, we have 76. Non-moving violations we have 7. Moving violations are going to be considered like running a stop sign, speeding, but we actually have speeding separated here. Lane change, is it? Okay, lane change violations, that type of stuff. That's all moving violations. Non-moving violations are like registration, insurance, driver's license issues, that type of thing is a non-moving violation. So non-moving, we had 7. Parking citations, we had 4. Written warnings, we had 74, and speeding tickets, 103. So that's all over this last quarter. Is there any questions about any of this portion before we move forward on that part? Okay.
Joel, is that a better percentage for you?
For
I definitely like it better, but. How many stops is that?
you know what? I don't know. Did you pull how many traffic stops there actually were?
You know what, I did not, but I'm happy to include that in the quarters going forward.
Last quarter was 1 in 10, and we were hoping to get a better reach.
A little better than that? Okay. We can add that in the next one then. We'll make sure to add that. Hours in the city were 915.2. Average time in the city was 10.2 per day. Dispatch calls were 266. We had 383 deputy initiated calls. So that means the deputy actually started that incident. Just over half there, or I apologize, just more than the dispatch calls. Total number of incidents was 649. That's combined. Persons crimes, there were 17. Property crimes, there were 15, and society crimes were 4. Do you guys have any questions about the person's property and society, what the difference is?
If you
on
could
those?
explain that for me, that'd be great.
Sure. She's the best one to explain that.
So a person crime would be something like a simple assault or something like that. A property crime, an example would be a theft. A crime against society would be something like graffiti, dealing drugs, something like that.
Okay.
Great question.
To you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so investigation statistics, this is going to review from April 1st, 2024 until June 30th of 2024, so last about 90 days or so. So here on the right-hand side, we have all of those crimes sort of listed out, but here we can see that the vast majority of the crimes that were investigated by the sheriff's office were person crimes. where there was only one death investigation, and then about 30% of the crimes were property crimes. And here on this next slide, we'll break that down just a little bit more here. And this will also reflect the list of crimes and the number of occurrences on the previous slide before. So here of our person crimes, the most occurring person crimes were domestic violence and child abuse. And then the most occurrent property crime was theft. Any questions on investigations before we continue to victim services?
This information is always good. Is there a way that we can also take this and find specific hotspots in our city for the location where these are happening, even if we break it up into just grids, so that we can stay, north, south, east, west, and all of that kind of stuff, and be able to focus our attention on areas that may need a little bit more attention?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. We do that currently. So on a daily basis, we send out something called a daily intelligence brief. On a weekly basis, I check for both hotspots being, this is a particular, so for example, let's say the Maverick, right, had multiple instances of shoplifting. So that would be a hotspot, and a heat map would be, in this particular neighborhood, we've had X many of vehicle burglaries within the last X period of time. But it has to meet certain requirements or statistically in order for it to be considered a hotspot or a heat map. So now within those, there are some crimes that are not preventable, right? We can't prevent domestic violence. We can't prevent child abuse in the same sense that an officer presence would in fact prevent potentially a theft or a vehicle burglary. So the answer is yes, we do check for those on a weekly basis. We generally, and of course, if there are some, we give that information out to our officers, but we generally do not have, because they're so infrequent in different parts of South Weber, oftentimes there is no connection to make. However, if there is one, we include where it occurred, any suspect information that we have. We attach any video or pictures of suspects, any suspect information, any modus operandi, and then also the day of the week and the time of day that it's occurring, so that our officers in their presence can effectively hope to prevent that sort of crime.
Well, I think that sort of granularity would be fantastic, but I think just as a city, even just doing a running total within areas so that we as a city know where some of the hot spots are. And of course, like you said, domestic violence, it's going to be scattered all over the place. But if you're doing a long enough trend, we'll be able to see, well, is that really the case? Or are we having issues over here? Do we need to have more lighting over in the criminal area? Do we need to have some more over here by the, because every year over by Canyon Cove Park, we seem to get a whole rash of break-ins and car thefts. And it'd be good to kind of have that ahead of time, because I'm just a data freak, and I would love to be able to say, okay, well, we're heading into July. This is about the time that we get guys coming from Ogden, of course, coming over to get us and get our cars. So, but something like that we could, as a city, focus on, as well as knowing where our police force is focusing at.
Absolutely. I'm happy to meet with whoever might be most appropriate to get details on exactly what you'd like, and I'd be happy to get that put together for you and send that over to you guys.
Okay.
Clarification on your
Yes,
graph. Is this 27 individual cases, or are these combined? Some of these cases could have 2 or 3 of these investigated on. Like you have a child abuse and domestic violence could be one, or these 27 individuals.
That's a great question. So yeah, so these are 27 individual new cases that we received during that time. So this is not inclusive or representative in any way of cases that have been carried on from previous quarters that we are still in the process of investigating. Yeah, so even if, sorry, to answer your question, so if let's say there was a child abuse and a domestic violence, that's only being counted once in this graph.
And which one would it be counted in?
As the most severe offense.
Okay.
Just to follow up with what Joel was saying, because I was thinking the same thing. I think it would be really cool to see these incidences gridded out in our neighborhood. And I was actually going to ask David, could you actually get that queued up for the next time we meet as a public safety and see if that timeline works out? Because I think that would probably work pretty good.
Sure.
That'd be okay. All right, is that okay?
That sounds great.
We can put something together, bring it to public safety, and then get a little direction before the next quarter.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you. Any more questions before we continue? So as you know, we started our victim services, which we were very excited about 2 years ago. And so over the last couple quarters, I've been wanting to make sure that this is in here so that you guys know what they're doing for our citizens as well. So over the last quarter, we've gotten 14 new individuals that we've been serving with our victim services. We have 7 that are ongoing from that did not come in over the last 3 months. So we're serving a total of 21 victims in Weber County right now. And the chart to the right will break down the type of services provided. So whether it was advocacy or safety services or advocacy and accompaniment.
I just need to give a shout out for that. I have a friend whose daughter was victimized, and she just sang the praises of the victim services advocate. And she decided that she's like, I think this is super cool. I might want to do this for a living. So it's made a huge difference for her. So pass that along to everybody because we appreciate that.
I absolutely will. And I really appreciate that feedback. And we love our victim services advocates at the sheriff's office. I mean, they're just so great at their job. We're so blessed to have them. So absolutely, I will. Thank you for that feedback. And then here you can see the types of victimizations. Obviously, any and all information regarding victims, just as any other ongoing investigations, does have to be privatized. But the largest types of crimes that our victims are experiencing that we are serving are child pornography, child sex abuse, domestic violence, and stalking or harassment. Any questions on this slide? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Do a little intro real quick for you to that.
Well, hold on just one second. Dave and I had a email discussion going on with you about being able to put some of the trending going forward on it. I just think that with the information that y'all have, that it would really help if we could put and basically formalize the very front page where we have everything from our tickets broken down to the warnings that are put in there. Have those, list them as standard, don't change them again, and then pull from the past year everything that's in it so that we can see what's happening this month and see the trending for the entire year on those ones as well. Because while all of this information is good to know, unless we can see the trending of the months before, we don't know whether we're really going up and getting worse or we're going down and things are getting better. And that would just be something that would really help us a lot. So I would appreciate it if we could sit down, even if it's just over the phone or something, and be able to go over that during the public safety meeting and kind of formalize a way to do these reports going forward.
Absolutely.
That would be good.
I think that's a great idea. Let's do it. I think the one barrier that we might have is we did get a new system back in November. And frankly, during that time, we've done a lot to optimize our data collection to make it more accurate. So we might have some struggles getting it for the past year. We can certainly do it going forward.
Well, even if not, we should be able to just pull off of the quarterly reports that we get here. I mean, I'm sure they're still on all of those.
Of course.
Pull the numbers and just asterisk saying,
Absolutely.
this is from the previous system. And then as we go forward throughout the year, then it will, slowly adjust. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, can do.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, like Sergeant Pope introduced me, my name is Sergeant Matt Gary. I've been with the Sheriff's Office just over 10 years. So pretty passionate about the Sheriff's Office. Started in corrections, worked there for a little while, came out to patrol, did paramedic work and patrol work. Loved working up here in South Weber. It's my stomping grounds, I have to say. I left patrol, went to narcotics, where I did undercover narcotics work for 3 years. So I've got a passion for problem houses. So if you guys have problem houses, please pass them along. I know how to get into them. I know how to solve them. So
Good.
When I left NARCS, I came out and went to detectives, did child sex crimes, and currently working with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force and the FBI Task Force that does child exploitation as well. So those stats, they concern me, obviously, because we want those numbers to be 0 is ideal. So pass along to your family, your friends. We do monthly trainings for juveniles. We prefer like 12 and older, but it's basically the scares of child sexual exploitation and sextortion and how to not become a victim of that. So those are all over the Facebook page, Instagram and stuff like that. So we do them once a month, just at rotating libraries throughout the county. So pass those along to
Very good.
family, friends. We're looking for more participants in that. It's a great class. So.
Also, I think once a quarter, have one for parents, and what to watch out for with your children, on what to watch out for. So that, again, that's on our, the Davis County Sheriff's Office Facebook page and Instagram. So if you want to watch for that, then hopefully we can get those numbers down.
I've watched those and shared those within the city and stuff. Are you talking maybe having one here that, because that one is usually, I can't remember where y'all have it, whether it's up there. So it's kind of on the far reaching side. If you are looking for a place to be able to have one, whether we can do something here or whatnot, it'd be good to have it so that the north end can also come closer and have a little bit more ease to come.
Yeah,
into
and
it,
that's
so.
what initially we started just doing it in Farmington, and then we rotated throughout the county doing different libraries. That seems like the most convenient place to go for the public and arrange a meeting. But I can definitely talk to Stephanie, our PIO, and see if we can get something arranged up here too.
Okay, that'd be great.
That's a good idea. So yeah, I usually, right now I'm working weekends and then Mondays, so I'll be in Mondays. If you guys need to chat, I'll bring a stack of cards up, leave my card and my number, so.
Well, welcome.
Thank you guys.
Yes,
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yeah,
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate
And
it.
see you later, Pope. That
Yeah.
makes me sad.
We will miss you.
I will still be out on patrol. I will still come up and play around up here and say hi and be around. So I just won't be here for the city council meetings as much anymore. So, but I am a little sad as well. 7 years is a long time to all of a sudden change, but change is good. So, you know, give me a little more experience in other areas. But also one last thing, we have started in our patrol division to press our guys a little bit more, spending more time in areas like contract cities, which would be South Weaver, West Point, things like that. We're pressing our guys to do that in the middle of the night, to be driving through neighborhood, street by street, to bring down that theft and crimes that we are seeing. So hopefully next quarter, we're going to see a little lower stats on things like that. And we're going to see a lot higher on incidents that our deputies, I mean, it's pretty high already, but on incidents that our deputies have initiated, because we're going to be driving through the city and we're going to be doing a lot more in here. So I think you should see a lot more of us. So
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Appreciate all you do.
Yep. Wish
You will
well.
definitely be missed.
Yeah.
I mean, you've really had
Me
an
too.
impact on this
I
city,
will
so.
definitely miss it too,
Yeah.
but I'll be around.
One last thing, kind of on that point. Oh, I'm sorry, where you going?
No,
Oh.
you just said one last thing about 3 times now.
I know. Way too much cough syrup, I swear. So a couple of days ago, I had some citizens come over to my house and they told me, and there is a record of this, or a detective came out and they created a record for it, of a bunch of juveniles that wearing masks came up to their door and did the best they could to rip off a pride flag. And in so doing it, pounding on the door, screaming on it, trying to break the flag. They had screwed it together so that it would be able to stay together in the wind. So they weren't able to get it. But I know kids will be kids, but we also get to a point where now that's looking real close to hate crime. And that's something that I really think we need to be able to look at, focus, and the only way I know that is really having a presence around. I mean, there's things that could be done other places, but most of that's going to be in the home. But if we could have some kind of, especially in that area where the report happened, they're still nervous. And I know a couple of days before there were other reports of basically a huge group of kids that were all out there kind of hanging around and getting into all the trouble that they could. And I know that there is an ongoing investigation, so I appreciate all of that. I'm just asking that, will you talk to your officers that when they do their patrols, especially in the evenings, to make sure it's a visible, like almost a slow roll through some of these neighborhoods, just so that people, because they were apparently hanging out even just in the road with a car, bikes, all kinds of different things, not even concerned that anyone would see them. And there were a number of calls on it. So stuff like that, just that ups the ante on some of the, when people are going and terrorizing citizens just for their beliefs.
I totally agree with you. In 20 days, I will be released off of light duty. That's why I'm not in uniform still. I'm still injured. But in 20 days, I'll be released off of light duty. And in August, I actually start on graveyards. So I will be Tuesday through Friday on graveyards. And that's what I like to do, is turn on my white light bar and then just drive about 10 miles an hour, just right down all the streets and everything. So then it can also catch all the Ring doorbells and everything as it's going down. So everyone can know, hey, we're coming through. So yeah, then that's part of our, hey, we really need to we're pressing our deputies pretty hard to do that. So
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, appreciate you coming.
you.
Okay, Chief Tolman, come forward and tell us about these major changes.
Hello. That's the wrong one. Oh, okay. So I'm just going to warn you, this is going to sound like a super heavy conversation, and it kind of is, but it's not all doom and gloom. But I think it's important for the council to know what's coming down the pipeline from OSHA. It's not coming down the pipeline, it's out of the pipeline, and how that's going to affect NFPA. And then I'm going to cover some other things that are going on with insurances and the federal government and all that jazz too. No, not going to work. This is fun.
Blowing my mind so far.
I can swing it if you want.
Can you forward it?
I can just grab my laptop so I can follow along too, if that works.
Unless you can just change the slides yourself.
John, there's 3 different slideshows. The first one is
Everybody good?
Received. Oh, no, that was good.
It's just taking a minute to download.
No
Sorry.
worries. I can just kind of give a breeze over this first couple slides. Well, I'll start with the background. OSHA kind of has felt that fire departments around the country aren't following the NFPA standards, and they decided it was important for them to get involved and force fire departments to follow certain NFPA standards by making them part of OSHA standards. And so we'll talk later, but basically anything that says shall or must is no longer a recommendation. It is now the standard. And I know me and a lot of other chiefs sent letters during the comment period saying, hey, you don't understand how this is gonna affect small communities. OSHA chose to define small communities as communities less than 3,000 people. And so obviously that's not us. They are allowing some exemptions based on financial hardships if cities can show that they can't afford to do certain things. But their thing is they wanted to expand the scope. They want to align with industry standards and enhance preparedness. And I found this quote online that kind of summed up everything. So I'm going to read it because I think it's important. Besides, in addition to the obvious hazards of fire to firefighters, fire and burns, falling through a floor, falling off a ladder, or smoke inhalation, OSHA has paid attention to all of the fire service in total calls to do something about firefighter cancer and firefighter mental health and suicide. OSHA's observation is that we haven't significantly reduced deaths and injuries, particularly cardiac deaths, using voluntary measures. The big picture rationale for this is that we, the fire service as an industry, have failed to voluntarily use our consensus standards or other means to reduce injury and death, and to take steps necessary to address cancer and mental health suicide issues. It's called market failure and needs regulation. So that's OSHA's perspective. And I'm just gonna also give you my 2 cents. Like, I think it's sad. And honestly, it makes me angry that we as an industry have gotten to the point where OSHA has felt like they need to step in and do something. Like, to me, I take offense to that. Because I feel like there's a lot of fire chiefs and cities out there that are trying their best to meet these standards. But obviously we're not doing a good enough job if OSHA felt like they needed to step in. And so to me, it's this double-edged sword. I think it's great that we're having more recognition that we need to protect our guys better, but it's sad that the federal government views it that us fire chiefs have failed to doing our duty to protect our guys. And so to me, this is a bittersweet conversation because it is sad that OSHA's finally decided to put their boot on us. And we never should have got to that point to begin with. This next slide just talks about some general stuff. I don't really want to get into the weeds too much. But some of the things that really can impact us is they're now mandating what's called the 2 in, 2 out rule. The 2 in, 2 out rule means if 2 firefighters go into a structure fire, you have to have 2 firefighters outside of the structure fire in case something goes wrong. In the past, there's been exceptions to that. If there's an immediate rescue, if there's it's a room and contents fire, then that rule has been waived. But OSHA is now saying that that rule is mandatory regardless of the circumstances. So we're 3-handed staffed. So, I mean, the math's pretty easy there, that OSHA is basically telling us that we cannot go internal on a structure fire without 4 people. And I obviously 4-handed staffing is the industry standard and has been for a long time, but I also get we're a small city with limited resources. So that's one big thing. I don't know how that's going to affect us as all this starts to roll out, if they will give us the financial exemption or not, or maybe there'll be enough pushback by state and local officials that maybe we can get this whole OSHA thing reversed. I don't know.
Can I ask you a question on that, Derek?
Yeah.
How often do you guys go internal on a structure fire?
Our guys went internal on structure fires twice last week. So Friday, Cole was one of them.
Thank you.
How many this year though?
This year?
It seems to me like that would be pretty standard practice, right?
2 in, 2 out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going inside a structure fire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like
the only time we're not going in a structure fire is if there's some kind of hazard in there that like explosions are going off, or if the structure is past the point where it's not safely to put somebody in there due to collapse risks, or there's just too, like it's fully involved. But we're a pretty aggressive and progressive fire department. And a lot of departments have standards that they won't even let their guys go interior until the next arriving apparatus is on scene. I think that's bad practice. I think it's our job to get in there and put the fire out. And if, especially here, if we're waiting for Layton or Weber 64 or somebody else to show up to go in and put the fire out, we're going to go from a room and contents fire. So we're going to go from a kitchen fire or a bedroom fire to half the house is gonna be involved, because in modern construction, structure, or the fire doubles every 30 seconds. And so it's important for us to be able to get in and do our job and do our job fast. And so as far as I'm concerned as chief, we're gonna do our job. And if OSHA wants to penalize us because we sent 2 guys in to rescue somebody and kept somebody outside, then that's something I'm willing to live with. As far as the financial penalty, I mean, again, this is also new. I don't know how they're gonna even police all of this stuff, to be honest. I mean, how are you gonna police 70,000 fire departments? You're gonna need to create a whole new branch of OSHA just to deal with NFPA standards.
That may be the point.
So
I was gonna ask, like, what's the likelihood that, well, with an election year this year, what's the likelihood that this actually stays the way it is, especially if the president changes?
I wish I could answer your
I
question.
would think that it would have a heavy impact on what this could look like, right? Not that we can
Right.
bank on that or anything, but.
no, I mean, that's a whole different question about how federal bloating and bureaucracy has come, and whether that would even be high on whoever the next president's radar is. I have no idea. I wish I knew, but for now, this is the world we're living in. Yeah, but we can hope.
But once it hits OSHA, OSHA does this almost by themselves. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a coming from that department. It's coming from internal of OSHA.
Yes, this was I read the entire document, and if you ever want to be bored to death, that's a good place to start. And this all came from OSHA committees. And OSHA committees, they all meet together, and you have these people with PhDs that actually have no real world experience, and they think they know how things operate. And to tell firefighters that they can't do their job is a hard pill for me to swallow. I can think of a handful of times, and I think Cole was there for a few of them, but policies and our field operation guidelines are guidelines for a reason. That's what we operate from, field operation guidelines. Because the reason they're guidelines is sometimes we're put in situations where the guideline is not the right move and we have to adapt and overcome. And for OSHA to say, you're no longer allowed to adapt and overcome, and we're going to tell you exactly how to fight this fire and exactly how to technical rescue this person and exactly how to handle this hazmat situation, to me is way out of line and inappropriate. Like, I don't micromanage my guys. My guys go on the call and I trust them to do their job. So for the federal government to sit there and tell us how to operate a single family structure fire is outrageous to me. But that's where we're at. And it's frustrating. I'm going to skip through some of these because we've covered most of this. I just passed the alignment with FEMA's National Response Network. I'm skipping those couple slides. We talked about most of this. This is OSHA's way of basically telling us how to train, what certifications we need, how to increase operational efficiency. One thing that really can affect us, and we as chiefs are hoping in Davis County that we can operate through our automatic and mutual aid agreements to be able to cover this, is one of the changes that OSHA is making is they're saying each fire department must be proficient with hazmat technicians. Each fire department must be proficient with technical rescue teams. Each fire department. So not only does that come with me having to require all of our guys to be hazmat technicians and we're all hazmat ops minimum trained already. And we do have hazmat techs, but this would mean I have to have all my guys hazmat techs, all my guys rescue techs, like go down the list of the things they're requiring. And we're hoping as a Davis County officer group, because each department right now has a different specialty. Like Layton provides hazmat, South Davis provides hazmat, Syracuse and Farmington help with technical rescues. And so we're covering all those different kind of calls with our agreements. But OSHA, the way they've written this, says, no, each department shall have a technical rescue team. And it's not just about the certification, it's about all the equipment that is involved in that. I mean, how much is a technical rescue rope, Cole? Did you do search and rescue stuff? It's just, I don't think it's tenable what they're asking. And some of this, we're just gonna have to play it by ear, and I hope you're right. I hope this goes away, but for now, this is the world we're living in. And hopefully they accept our conglomerate of skills as a county and say, okay, you guys meet the standard. Because requiring each city to do this to me is asinine. But that's their rationale. Yeah, you can skip that next slide too. So we're on back to analysis. This kind of, again, touches on a lot of the stuff we just talked about. It's an unfunded mandate. That's obvious. We already talked about how it's going to impact fire departments with non-compliance. Concerns with the proposed rulemaking. The fire service questions the reliability of some of the data and theories used to produce this proposal. There are less intrusive actions that fire service organizations could take that would have immediate positive impacts on firefighter safety and create little or no additional burdens. And this is where I think, well, I don't think this is where me and a lot of the other chiefs are coming from is it's okay to say, hey, we think you guys have a problem, but give us a report and let us work on fixing that problem. And chiefs that are progressive and fire departments and cities that are progressive should be doing most of these things anyways. And I would put us in that category. Like my goal from day one of being fire chief has been like, as you guys know, I'm super passionate about standards to the point of nauseam, because it's not just about the standard, it's about what that standard means as far as keeping our personnel safe and our citizens safe. And so I feel we're 90% there, or better already, but it's going to be that 2 in, 2 out stuff and that tech stuff that really has the potential to cause problems for us down the road. And then the incorporation of the NFPA standards, I already mentioned this, but that last sentence, this means that any place the NFPA standard says shall or must, the authority having jurisdiction would be responsible to adhere to them. And so that puts the onus on me as the AHJ to make sure that we're meeting all these NFPA standards. And there's hundreds of NFPA standards. So again, we strive to meet all this, but it just is what it is. I already talked about the 2 in, 2 out. And that I mentioned structured fires, but that also goes for hazmat, like firefighter teams, that second one. Anything we need 2 in, 2 out for, at some point, I don't know if we're gonna have to be forced to go to 4-handed staffing or say, no, we're a small enough city that OSHA's not gonna even glance at us. Anyways, I think we beat that one to death. So I talked to you guys about the standards already. One of the things I did want to bring up, a lot of fire departments are already talking. I'm sure you guys saw it on the news about consolidation. Right now you have Roy, Riverdale, South Ogden, Washington Terrace looking at consolidating. You have conversations happening all over the state saying, hey, maybe the way we're going to meet this is by consolidating with other agencies. Because if we're all one agency, then you already have your built-in rescue tech team, and you already have your built-in hazmat team, and because now you're all part of one agency. So even though physically nothing's changed, that tech rescue team is still where that tech rescue team, and that hazmat team is still where that hazmat team is. Now it will make us OSHA compliant. I already talked to you about the finance opt-out option.
How do you feel about that though?
The finance opt-out option?
No.
The consolidation option?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you in this next slide. One of the other options, and this is all just for transparency, is to contract with another city for services. So outsourcing our emergency services is something that some other smaller cities are looking at doing. Anyways, those are just options. Here's how I feel about it. We've been striving to meet these response safety standards already. This is what my job is. It's my job to keep our guys safe, keep the community safe. Like I said, I feel we're 90% there. Apparently I made Blair upset.
I wouldn't recommend doing that again.
I feel like we're a healthy fire department. I feel like we're in a healthy place. We have highly trained personnel and we are progressive. We train hard, we work hard. Even today, we had an 1.5 acre fire on 84 and we crushed it. We had it out in less than 15 minutes. And it was just right over here by the DR Horton subdivision. Like our guys rock. As far as the value we get from our staffing, the value we get based on the people we have and the staffing model we use is unbeatable. The fact that we have career firefighters that bring their experience here is awesome. Just today, on shift with us today, we have a battalion chief for Farmington working as a firefighter for us. And the fact that we're able to draw those people and make this city have amazing coverage and we're not paying for benefits and everything else, I think our model really is working perfect for a city of our size. Consolidation, as far as consolidation goes, to answer your question, I think it'd be a mistake. I think, and the reason I think it'd be a mistake is we've reached out to different departments in the past and the number was more than what my current budget is. But the other reason I think it's a mistake is I don't think our city, we learned this during the paramedic discussions. We were lectured a lot during the paramedic discussions about, well, your city doesn't need paramedics because you chose to live in the country and country people don't get the same level of service as city people. That's a direct quote. And so I think any merger, any consolidation, I think they will say, well, we're going to cover South Weaver from Layton 54, or we're going to cover South Weaver from Station 64. And I think to that last square, we are the only station that can meet the response time requirements for the South Weaver citizens. We're it. When we had the paramedic conversation and they ran all the maps of all the response times from all the different stations, we are it. And so
so is that what they're talking about? I guess I misunderstood when you were saying that they were talking about consolidating. I thought that was mainly a name only so that one agency would qualify for all of those different items, but not necessarily take away station houses or any of that.
You would still be part of that consolidation.
right, we would be part of that consolidation, but I'm saying once we hand control over to a board, whether it operates as a metro or a fire district during that consolidation, we are now one voice, just like all of you are one voice on the council. And so if they say, hey, we think South Weaver, they only run so many calls a year. We can't meet the response times, but it is what it is. They could easily say, we're closing Station 1 and we're closing Station 82, as part of that consolidation. Like Station 82 and Station 64 are 2 blocks from each other. Like if there was a consolidation, like 2 fire stations 2 blocks from each other is kind of silly, but they could easily, once we lose that control, they could easily say we're not staffing our station. Does that make sense?
I think it does, but I do think the cities have control over that, especially in the negotiations of how the agency would be coming together as one. Because that's all still going to have to be contractual, and I don't see South Weaver ever saying, yeah, we'll give you guys everything here, just do it, just come down and save us when you need it.
Right, but when you're one voice on a board of 5, if the other 4 say we're closing.
Well, that's
South
why I'm
Weaver
saying
Fire
contractual,
Department.
but we haven't even gotten that far yet.
Right,
But-
and the only reason I even brought that up is I just wanted full transparency as far as there are conversations with our neighbors taking place. And I didn't want there to be a perception that I was aware of those and didn't bring them to your attention. And when Riverdale and South Ogden tried to have a partnership 4 years ago, they approached us to be part of that partnership. And the agreement they wanted with us at the time would not have benefited South Weaver at all. It just wouldn't, because we are viewed as the little brother. And as long as there's that perception, we will always be viewed as the low man on the totem pole. And that's why I think us staffing our own department is the best path forward, unless all of a sudden we're getting $500,000 fines from OSHA every year, then it's probably time to reconsider. So, and hopefully we don't get to that point, but.
Well, I agree. We do definitely have the best station house, so. And that means the members of our fire department.
So any questions on the OSHA and FPA stuff before I move on?
When does this take effect? I
It's
know.
already taken effect.
So, okay, yes, because it said May, right? It was
Yes.
the end of the comment period and whatnot. So then what do we do from here?
I think at this point, we hold the course, we keep striving as much as we can to meet the NFPA standards, like I said, which is what we do anyways. And then as soon as we start figuring out who our point of contact is for OSHA for all of this, that's when, because that's the thing, is they just threw all this at us, said these are all the things you have to do. But as far as a point of contact, like, hey, does our Davis County automatic aid agreements and the automatic aid agreements we have with Weber County, do those meet the standard? Because the way the standard's written, it doesn't make it sound like it does.
Well, in Utah, OSHA's still gonna be having to figure it out
Right.
to even get you a point of contact. So
Yeah, this is gonna be a long process, and I think they, like, reading through the document even says that it's gonna take some departments 10 to 20 years to meet these standards. So they are admitting in their own document that they know this is gonna be a heavy lift for a lot of departments. And so it's like, okay, well, if you're admitting that you know it's gonna take 10 to 20 years for some departments to reach full compliance, like, what does that mean when you're threatening penalties in the meantime? And those are the questions that weren't included in the document.
but to the bright side of that, and not a bright, because it's still a pain. When you have that point of contact and you enter into that negotiation back and forth with them, they actually assign you a case officer. They can't fine you for 3 years. So they allow you to work through that and you can continue that service with OSHA. So we're not getting fined as long as we're in contact with them.
Yeah.
And it's against federal law for them if you're actually making that contact and in their program. So it can be bad if you don't. If you ignore it, it's terrible. But if you don't, if you address it like we are,
Right.
I think it's a big thing, but it's not, the fines won't be there if we stay on top of it.
And that's all we can do, right? It's
Mhm.
continue to work and stay on top of this the best we can. And that's my commitment to you guys is I know that sounded super heavy and it is heavy, but I feel pretty confident that we're sitting in a good place as a city and as a fire department, that I imagine, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. I imagine there's other departments that have, that are gonna be on their radar long before we are. I guess that's the nicest way to say that. Because we really do strive hard to meet all these standards already. I just wanted to go over a few other things that affect the fire department that is happening both, well, like this one actually is a presidential mandate. When President Biden decided to make it so medical debt does not appear on credit reports. Having had a kid that's been through a lot of health procedures and knowing what that would have looked like had my daughter not gotten to St. Jude's, I can see why this can be crushing to families, especially when they're trying to buy houses and buy cars and everything else. So that's the Derek perspective. The Chief Tolman perspective is this is going to make it so people are less likely to pay their ambulance bills. If they don't have to worry about it affecting them, they're going to prioritize their other bills over their medical bills. And I can't necessarily fault them in that, but I do know this is a big hot topic when it comes to the ambulance revenue side of the house. And it was a presidential mandate. So to your point, maybe we'll get a new president and that will change again, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. This just touches on all that, the negative impact on healthcare providers, decreased revenue. It's new, so we don't know exactly how it's going to affect us, but that's just another Biden special. Medicare, Medicaid, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid released mandates saying that certain fire departments had to do reporting to CMM, and we were chosen as one of those fire departments. And then I applied for a hardship exemption because when I talked to them on the phone, because they just randomly pick fire departments, and we were lucky enough to be selected. When I talked to them on the phone, they're like, well, yeah, just have your secretary do this. Well, I don't have a secretary. So I said, look, this is gonna add 10 to 15 hours of work to, to me each week to fill out all these forms you want filled out. And so I applied for the hardship exemption and it was initially accepted, but it's still under review. What that will mean for us, if you look at the consequences for not reporting, is so Medicare and Medicaid already only pay us half. And so now they're saying not only are we only going to pay you half, if you fail to do this reporting, we're going to take 10% on top of that, which for us, it's $700 roughly for a Medicare bill. So they're going to take $70 away from us if they, after our hardship exemption goes all the way through, if it gets rejected at the end, even though it was initially accepted. It's just the federal government making it really hard for us to collect. And I don't know why we were selected, and I don't know why they feel this data is important, because we are mandated by the state to do Medicare and Medicaid reporting annually anyways. So all they had to do if they wanted this information was to pull this information from the state database. But of course, it's the federal government, so they had to complicate everything. Another thing that's affecting our ambulance billing is a bunch of insurance companies have banded together and they've decided they're not paying for supplies anymore. They're saying we will pay the maximum transport fee that the state allows, but as far as paying for supplies, not going to happen. This is going to be an extreme example, but like an IO needle for us costs $400. And so these insurance companies are just saying, eat it. And our medications are expensive, and what they've tried to do is they've tried to backdoor all of us by sending us, oh, here's some contractual agreements we want you to sign. But luckily, as a state fire chief group, we got the message out quick, like, do not sign any of these agreements. They make it sound like they're trying to do us a favor by being contracted with us, but really it's relieving them of their cost. This is being fought at the legislature. But currently there are companies like, well, I'm not going to say specific companies because I don't know if I should or if I shouldn't, but there are already companies refusing to pay for supplies, and hopefully the legislature helps us out, because as a fire chief group, we're fighting this, but really it's going to take legislative action, because the legislature they even control what we're allowed to bill per transport. And then last, I want to say thank you. Like I said, this was a heavy conversation. I know that had all this stuff hit, a decade ago, we'd really be in trouble, but because of the support of all of you on the council and prior councils, our fire department really is in a great spot. And I wanted to let you guys know it's because of your support and the support of the community that this OSHA NFPA thing, like, yeah, there may be some hurdles coming down the road, but I feel like we are super prepared to be able to handle those. And that we already are handling a lot of that. And it's because of the support of you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Any questions about any of that? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Next item is to approve our consent agenda consisting of June's checks and May's budget actual. Is there any questions, concerns, or discussions on any of these?
Mayor, I have a few observations from the finance side for the budget actual I'd like to share.
Okay.
Just to be brief, I'm not going to go through these all real quickly, but page 28, the general fund, it shows with 11 of the 12 months in, we're about $288,000 below the estimated revenue for sales tax to come in. And our monthly increase for sales tax is not going to make that up. So it's just an observation, something we need to do. But the sales tax revenue didn't hit the mark this year. However, the interest earnings made up for that difference, more than made up for that difference. So that our general fund, we're in good shape. We're actually, our expenses are less than our revenue. is more than our expenses for the year for 11 months. So we're in good shape for the general fund. However, on some of the other funds, the rec fund, our revenue is very much below our expenditures, like 140,000. We knew this because we're losing the sales tax revenue from our pit. And that's about the amount of money that we're losing. This is something we noted in former meetings. It's something we're going to have to address in our future revenues and future budgets for the rec fund. The bigger one, the water utility fund, we're about $500,000 over expenditures. Given the revenue coming in, our revenue is about 1.6 million below what the budget estimate was. So we're going to have to be at the end of the year. I don't think we're going to make that up. We're going to have to use a fund balance to make up that difference for the water fund. Just bring these out as point of interest or point of information, being over finance and admin, just so that you're aware of how we're doing. But overall, I think staff's doing a good job of managing the fund, but those are just a few observations.
I have a question about one of the line items. And I think it's related to the rec, but there was a $7,500 charge for Utah Jazz. Do we have any details on what that was?
Yeah, that's just the junior jazz cost for working on that program with them, getting the jerseys and things like that. That's just the cost of the junior jazz program. This kind of the startup costs at the beginning of the season.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
Those costs are recouped with the participation in the program.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Any others? No, we'll look for a motion on this.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item, resolution 2421, appointing Brett Baltazar as our city finance director. Brett, would you like to come up to the microphone? This council is Brett Baltazar's. We'd like to present him to you for your sustaining vote to be appointed as our city finance director. Dave and I have interviewed him and found him very qualified to fulfill this position for us, and so we would present him to you at this time. Brett, thank you for being here.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Any questions for Brett?
No, Haley's not here to ask him an embarrassing question, so.
I'll ask you a non-embarrassing question then. So you're a resident of South Weber?
Yes, I am.
How long have you lived here?
4 years, a little over 4 years.
Awesome. So what are you most looking forward to about working for the city?
One thing that I've always tried to do, I've worked in for-profit companies, and I've worked for state government, nonprofits. One thing that I've always tried to do is make a focus on how to improve things and how to involve the community and make the community, in this case, it'd be the community that I'd focus on, making sure that they're getting the biggest bang for their buck type of thing. When I worked in public education, I worked very, very closely with school districts and charter schools. Highmark just down the street, I worked very closely with their director to ensure that they're spending their money according to both state and federal requirements, along with helping the state legislators create programs to help various students throughout the state.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very good.
The
Thank you.
commute's not bad either, right?
No, it's just a few blocks down the street.
Well, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm just curious, with our risk audit that we come up with, there's always a question, do you have a certified accountant or certified financial officer on staff? Do you come with any of these certifications at this time?
I don't have a CPA, but I've always been a big fan of whatever. I've been part of all the different federal state organizations, the trainings that they offer. The state auditor offers quite a bit of training. Whenever it's possible, I focus on going to those, making sure that I'm always up to date on the requirements.
I was just curious.
Yep.
Okay.
But you do have a bachelor's degree in accounting.
Yes, I do. I do have a bachelor's degree in accounting with over 12 years of experience.
Mayor, make a motion, we approve resolution 24-21, appointing Brett Baltazar as city finance director.
Second.
Okay, we'll begin motion and a second. Do you get those? We'll begin with roll call vote from Councilman Howerson.
Aye.
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 Okay, welcome aboard.
Welcome, Brett.
Welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
He starts tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Right in the middle of budgets, huh?
Okay, we'll look for a motion to open a public hearing for amendment resolution 24-15A, making final technical corrections to our fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Favor say aye.
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 Okay, public hearing is open. Anyone have any comments? Ask that they come up at this time. No public comments, and we'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item, ratification of amendment resolution 24-15, making final technical corrections to fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
Mayor, I move to ratify the previous approval of amended resolution 24-15A.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Give it a roll call vote from Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Fire apparatus order, discussion on this. We've discussed this and discussed this and discussed this. Where do we want to go from here, Derek?
I sent those as PowerPoints, so Lisa's gonna try to open the actual PowerPoint. If not, we'll do it like we did last time.
No, oh, there they are.
Hey. Now the question is, am I gonna be able to read it over there? So, I don't know, back in March, I applied for a mental health grant and we were granted $73,000 or $63,500. Or no, $73,500, sorry.
I'm sorry, this is not the right
This
one.
is,
We're talking
We're
about
on the
Clint
Clint.
first.
I was just reading what was up there. I have Quint here. I should have read that. Huh? There we go. Switching gears. So for those that don't know, that's the ladder for a Quint. So like you've noticed in the packet, there's two different options, one for the Quint from Rosenbauer, one for the Quint from Pierce. Price wise, they're pretty much in the same ballpark. If we go with option one for purchasing the Quint, that would mean we take delivery 2 years earlier than planned, finance the final 2 years, use those 2 years of payments to just pay off the financing. The benefit to that is we get the Quint 2 years earlier, and which is always great. And it keeps our fleet with the same brand. Any questions on the Rosenbauer Quint?
My question,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
My question is gonna be on the finance side.
Okay.
Like, how much additional costs is that gonna be? And is that gonna be over and above what the Pierce risk is if we would go with the Pierce route, I guess?
So the Pierce guys, sorry, I have my notebook back here on my phone. They sent.
Derek,
Yeah.
hold on just 1 second. I don't want you to get too far into this. Council, have we made a formal decision that we want the Quint versus the engine? I know we had a lot of discussion about it.
Yes.
But it was ended on a discussion note, not a, yeah, so we've now got the money, we've got the order right here, ready to go on it.
What's
I
Joel
may be wrong.
recommending?
What?
What are you recommending?
I honestly don't know, because I know we need a Quint. I believe in it. I've seen what it can do. I've seen how it can help and what it would do to be able to help our firefighters stay safe and to be able to get to some of these areas. We have the Cambridge Crossing Apartments at the top floor. It's tough to do just on the 50-foot ladder. That all being said, I still don't know if it's worth the price over the engine for our city. Not for need. For need, it is by far the better apparatus. There's so many strengths on it, it's not even worth going into, but we're South Weber, and that is a huge chunk of money. So that's why I wanted to ask the rest of the council what their thoughts were on it and whether we had come to an agreement yet. So
I'm all in on the Quint, so it's not even a question in my mind anymore.
I'm in on a Quint. I actually think just like the fire we had just down the couple blocks down, you'd still use a Quint, even though it was just a single story home.
Yeah.
Want the last word again?
Again.
I'll go ahead, Angie. That's okay. Long story short, I'm with staff on the Quint. I mean, I trust the evaluation that staff did. I trust that they did due diligence in looking at their needs and the city's needs versus the engine versus a Quint. And they've come forward and today have made a recommendation with their procurement process of a Quint. So I'm trusting that they've done the due diligence and I support that.
So in discussions that I've had, I'm in for the Quint as well, but knowing that it was originally what we were supposed to order in 2018, what we should have gotten in 2018, right? Originally, and we took a step back to do the engine instead. So I'm in for the Quint.
okay. It's a heartburn, but I've told you from the beginning, this is the mission, the apparatus we need. And like you said, yeah, it would have been used today. It will be money very well spent. So, okay, now.
Thank you.
Let's continue on. I just wanted to make sure that was.
So
Jeremy had a question.
yes, to your question.
Yep.
There's a lot of unknowns. We weren't given a direct percentage because interest rates are all over the place as far as what Rosenbauer would give us.
Yep.
As for that 2-year time window. We do get a discount with them by paying for the chassis up front, which we could do with our current amount of money that we have budgeted for heavy apparatus. But there's a lot of unknowns. What Pierce wanted me to clarify, I wrote it poorly in the report, but they explained it better, is that the 5% language is the index increase at a rate greater than 5% year over year, not 5% total for the 4-year period. And they said, should they say that one? Cool.
So hold on, let me make sure I understood what you just
It could
said.
be 5% each year is what they're saying.
Yeah. So year over year, my understanding, and I think they're listening. So if I'm explaining this wrong, please text me. Is yes, it's year over year, that 5.5%. So if it increases below that 5% each year, then there's no increase. But my initial understanding was it was over the course of the build. And so if it went, that producer price index went to 15, then that's a 10% markup. They're saying it's each year individually.
Yeah. Okay. So hypothetically, we could see a four increases if things got crazy.
If things got crazy.
But they're saying that this is really rare and the risk is, from their perspective, the risk is super low, but it's still a rider they put on to protect themselves.
Correct.
And their margins. Okay. Okay. Yeah, my only question was what I'm trying to understand the difference between is the risk with the Pierce greater than the cost of financing the last 2 years, or is the benefit of like you were calling out the benefit of keeping the two engines the same make, does that outweigh the costs? Like, what's your opinion on
Honestly,
it?
I wish there was a way to predict that, but I have no clue what the market's gonna do. And like we've already mentioned, come November, there could be complete chaos, one direction or the other. So I wish I could give you a hard answer on your question, but I have no way of knowing that.
Then I just got a couple questions. If we take the delivery 2 years earlier, how does that affect our 10-year rotation?
We would extend the Quint an extra 2 years of life.
Because it becomes our backup when we go to order another engine.
Correct.
Because I actually like receiving it early, where we're sitting here filling a tank, a leaky truck is our backup now.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I would like to know and pin down the rate that that's at.
Okay.
I mean, because that could make a significant difference of what that loan is, what the remaining amount would
Right.
be.
And I can try to get them to give me a ballpark estimate on the percentage on what that would look. One thing they recommended was they offer their own in-house financing.
That's what I was gonna.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They could do that at zero if they're listening.
But but they also said, depending on what the market's doing and what they're doing as a company, it might be worth looking externally also.
It
But
might,
they do
yeah.
do their own internal financing. And I'm in the middle of buying a house and watching interest rates just change daily. Like, they're like, I have no idea what's gonna happen. And I wish I had answers to those questions, but unfortunately, there's no crystal ball to tell us what the producer price index is gonna do over the next 4 years on the Pierce side, and then what the Rosenbauer interest rates are gonna be for those remaining 2 years.
But we wouldn't have to finance until.
Until we took delivery.
Right, what it is. So they build it, we take delivery and then finance. the
Correct, so
remaining.
it's
Whatever it is in 2 years.
whatever that is, that's
Let's make a recommendation.
Well, I think there's a good chance the interest rates will come down by then.
And I know for sure Rosenbauer is having a price increase in August. And Pierce wanted me to say that their current bid expires July 31st. And so the prices that we have now are only good for the next 3 weeks.
So do we need to make a recommendation on this? Is this
This is action.
Yeah.
okay?
One way or another, yeah.
Both, just to be clear, having worked at Salt Lake for 8.5 years on exclusively Pierces are great apparatus. Rosenbauer's are great apparatus. I have no heartburn with either of these companies providing a quality product.
And you'll be able to get the customizations that you feel are needed out of both of them.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't worry about the finance. We've got a new director coming on tomorrow that can get that done.
So
Is-
just one point of clarification, this dollar amount you have here is for the chassis and all of the modifications, but not necessarily all of the other equipment that goes inside, correct?
That includes the ladders and the heavy stuff, but most of the equipment we're gonna need, we're gonna be able to pull off engine 2.
Okay,
When we replaced all of our hoses and stuff, those hoses will still be good when we take delivery of this. And so a lot of that stuff will just be transferred from current engine 2 onto the Quint. Well, really what will happen is everything on current engine 1 will go into the Quint. And then everything on current engine 2 will go into current engine 1, if that makes sense.
yes,
So
okay, thank you.
So as soon as we get the Quint, that becomes our primary apparatus, correct?
correct.
Okay.
And Pierce wanted me to also say, as long as we don't prepay for the build, they will waive the producer price index language, which to me, that seems backwards, but that's what they're saying. If we don't prepay, then they will waive the producer price index. So.
And did I hear that they were going to charge us for it to be painted?
Mhm.
Oh,
So,
the painting on both of them is all part of the bid process, so that
Okay.
paint is included in.
Okay.
this.
And it matches our current style, right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve to order a quint from Rosenbauer for 1.306801.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. A roll call, vote starting with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion carries.
That's a long time coming.
That was a long time coming.
Thank
and
you, everybody.
We didn't even make you go through the whole
Was it-
PowerPoint.
Was it well worth it?
We still have time though. If you want. Thank you.
Okay, you may as well stay right there.
I will stay right here. And
Next item, resolution 24-22 memorandum of agreement with Utah Department of Public Safety,
all right.
also known as the no-brainer.
Again, I apologize for that.
Oh, is that? I didn't know if it, I thought maybe Lisa did.
Oh, no, that was me. I will own it. But it is kind of a no-brainer. to be fair. So they gave us free money. Except we all pay taxes in the state of Utah, so there's that. So my other PowerPoint, we beat up a lot on the federal government. This one, we're gonna beat up on the state government. Because the state also likes to do unfunded mandates. And this is one of those. But it's for good reason, and they did provide some grant money to help us with initial costs. As you even saw with the Ocean FPA conversation, firefighter mental health and suicide is a big conversation right now because more firefighters die of suicide than actually die in the line of duty, which is depressing that that's the state of our industry. So the state of Utah realized we have this major problem, and they're now mandating that we implement certain programs to better protect the mental health of our firefighters, both proactively and reactively. And that's what this is gonna be all about. And even though this, again, like we're being given free money, I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about this actual issue. I know the council's heard me talk about it in retreats and stuff, but for the public listening, I think it's important for them to know how important mental health is to me personally and with my guys in the fire department. I think it's important that we preach as much as we can about what our guys go through. I'm just, I guess I can use this now, so use my laptop. So how this started was House Bill 23. This again mandated that everyone who's a first responder, regardless if you're a volunteer, cop, firefighter, EMS, that we are now mandated to provide mental health resources to employees, including access to psychological services, peer support, and counseling. And one thing they added to this bill is we also have to pay for their spouses and children to also receive mental health counseling. One thing during some of my education, I wrote a paper on this about secondary trauma, and it hit home for me about how much the things we deal with affect our families. And I'm super fortunate that right now I'm married to someone that was a firefighter paramedic and gets it. But a lot of spouses really struggle with how to handle their significant other. When you come home and how was your day, honey? Well, I did CPR on a baby today. How was your day? You know, those create what are called secondary traumas. And I think it's, while it's hard to say, okay, now we're paying for everybody, I think it's important for us to recognize what our spouses go through being married to us. And so I understand why that was included in the bill. House Bill 59 created a bunch more, I'm not going to read all these, but a bunch more requirements. And then that brings us to the grant program. So the state of Utah created a fund saying, hey, we know this is going to cost cities money to implement all these programs. And so we're going to give one-time money to help fund these programs, make that money last as long as you can. And then unless they approve more grants or whatever down the road, we're kind of on our own. The way we're currently meeting these requirements is we're contracted with Blomquist Hill. I don't know if I include that in here or not. But Blomquist Hill we reached out to them earlier this year to make sure we could be compliant. So now if we have a critical incident, like we had a handful last year, like the double fatality motorcycle wreck, we can now call Blomquist Health. They will send out a CISM team, a crisis intervention team, and they will come and do on-site counseling and talk to our guys and make sure they're doing okay. And so we now have all these great resources available to us. The way we worked it out with Blomquist Health is we're going to pay per use. And so this money will go. So when we have those incidences, or if we have people in our department that need ongoing mental health counseling because of the call that they had here, or their families do, then that grant money can help pay for Blomquist Health to provide those services. Yeah, PTSD, sorry. Using this. Studies indicate that approximately 20% of firefighters suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder at some point in their careers. Unfortunately, even here in the state of Utah, we average about 7 firefighter suicides a year, whereas we average less than 1 line of duty death a year. So our margins are even greater than the national average. And this next slide talks about that. In 2017, 103 firefighters committed suicide compared to 93 who died in the line of duty. And like I said, I don't know why, but in Utah, our number is way more skewed than this number. And I don't know. And obviously that's one of the reasons why the state's taken the steps they have, but it's a major problem here in the state of Utah. Firefighters deal with depression. It is not easy to see the things we see day in and day out. And there used to be this macho mentality in the fire services. If you ask for help, then you're weak. And I'm glad to see that we as an industry are recognizing how unhealthy that is. And we are giving people opportunities to seek help and not shame them for asking for help either. And I think it's important that regardless of what program we end up using the most of, that the city realizes how important these programs can be to our personnel. And we can continue to fund this moving forward, even after the grant money has expired. We're mandated to, so again, unfunded mandate, we kind of have to, but my goal is to make sure that anytime anyone in our department needs help, they know that there are resources available to them. And I just kind of talked about that. The lack of accessible mental health resources, we're increasing that. Another cool thing the state's doing is they're actually paying firefighters to become counselors and law enforcement to become counselors. Because one thing we've ran into is it's really frustrating when you go into a counseling session and somebody that's sat in an office their whole life says, I know what you're going through. It's like, you have no idea what we're going through. And so we're trying to get more of our people in those industries once they retire. These are all the things that will be included as part of our ongoing program with Blomquist Health. We will be managing our own internal peer support team, but the rest of that will be covered by Blomquist Health. Sorry, this is a really depressing conversation. I already covered a lot of this. But I hope you all vote to approve the MOU so we can utilize these resources for our guys. Any questions?
I have a quick question for you. I think you kind of already touched on this, but do you feel like this is something that is sufficient to overcome the issues that you see, or do you feel like this doesn't quite bridge the gap and there's still more that needs to happen?
I think there's more that needs to happen. Unfortunately, a lot of the major things we're seeing help PTSD. There's lots of studies coming out about how effective psilocybin, for example, is for treating PTSD. And even this last legislative session, the Utah legislature saw that. And so they actually passed a bill saying that psilocybin can be used for research in treating PTSD, but there's still federal hurdles that we need to overcome. So a lot of the legislature, we're learning a lot from law enforcement, from the military and from fire, that there's lots of what would traditionally be considered alternative methods for PTSD treatment aren't currently being allowed because they're, again, it's using psilocybin or ketamine and things that are federally regulated. And so my hope is that we can unregulate a lot of those things because the research that is coming out is people are getting more progress in one MDMA ketamine session than they are with a year of EMDR therapy. And I don't know how you can argue that it should still be illegal to do that when we're seeing such huge impacts from these studies where it's been allowed. I don't know, it's, you know, drugs have a bad connotation, just say no, but what's happening with the PTSD studies needs to really be taken seriously.
And from a community perspective, do you think there's anything else we can do as a community to support our firefighters?
No, I think our firefighters feel appreciated. I know they love coming and working here in South Weaver. They love being part of a community where they feel people actually care. And the thank yous they get on calls. Some of our firefighters, well, I can speak from personal experience, having worked at Salt Lake. There's other places where it's a pretty thankless job. And our citizens do a great job of supporting our fire department. So,
okay. Yeah, that's where I was thinking is it has to be thankless at least at some point, but I'm glad to hear that we don't fall into that same category.
Yep. Other questions?
I've got one. So how does this work where most of our firefighters are full-time someplace else or part-time someplace else? Is this just being paid through like the federal, or not the federal, but the state tax? Is this being taken out someplace? How is this being paid for?
The grant money?
Yeah.
The legislature just set aside $5 million.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're putting it someplace, but if they didn't, we would be paying it. Do we pay it on an annual basis? Do we pay it on a per paycheck basis? Is it? And why are we paying for it instead of the other one? I actually have the same question on a lot of the certifications, whether the city, whether you have to have a different certification for each city you're in, or if you get a certification where you're maybe a full-time firefighter and you come here, do we have to double up on that? So it's kind of the same question.
Right. So the way it currently works, and David, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we currently pay Blomquist Health a certain amount per employee to provide EAP services. And so that amount is just, the city was paying long before this program, because we've been with Blomquist Health long before this was approved. And our negotiations with Blomquist Health, initially they're like, well, we have this program, we'll charge you so much for this program. And then after doing some back and forth with them, we decided it was better to do per use. Because like you're saying, if my guy goes on a bad call at Ogden Fire, he should utilize their EAP program. And so for us, it makes a lot of sense to do it per use. That way we're not, like you're saying, paying for all these other employees, but all of our employees are already covered under the EAP through Blomquist Health anyways. The state did not differentiate between, well, if you work for multiple different departments, then only one department has to pay for you. They mandated it for all fire departments.
Okay, so it's a standard annual contract that we have with Blomquist Health?
Yeah, so I would add that the state differentiated between ongoing employee assistance program, EAP program money, and what that service is, and this firefighter mental health service that is now a new law state requirement. So they are separate and distinct. So what we had going for with Blomquist Health for firefighters and other employees did not count toward the state law. So we then talked to Blomquist Health. They have a separate and distinct service. You said use-based. I'm going to use the word incident-based. When there's a critical incident, then they can have the debrief their session at that point, and we will just pay each time there is one of those sessions on an individual session basis. So it's not a standardized number. It's just, here's the amount per session, however many we're going to have. And we can use this grant money to pay for that, among other things.
To answer your other questions about certifications.
Oh, yeah.
Fire certifications, once you have that fire certification, as long as you're working for a fire department, there's no ongoing cost to maintain that certification. That goes for hazmat, that goes for everything. So the only time we would ever pay is if we're paying for that initial certification. But even then we just do all the in-house training ourselves, and then the state sends their testers out. Where there is ongoing recertification costs, like for EMS certifications, paramedic, advanced EMT, EMT. All of my guys that work full-time somewhere else recertify through their full-time department.
Okay.
The only people that are recertifying through us are the Keith Christiansens, the Ronnie Ketts, the Travis Nicholsons, the guys that only work for us and don't have a career fire job elsewhere. Those are the only people we're paying for EMS certifications, recertifications for.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, or we'll look for a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve resolution 24-22 memorandum of agreement with Utah's Department of Public Safety.
Second.
Motion and a second. And with the roll call vote for Councilman Windsor.
Yeah, before we do that, just a clarification, what was in our packet? It needs to be updated. It says resolution 24-21. We already had a 21 prior, so let's make sure we get the right number in there. Aye.
Aye.
I agree.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item, ordinance 24-06 moderate income housing amendment. This is another one we've discussed heavily and changed again. And oh no, don't say that. Everybody feel good about the 4 that we've come up with?
I like it. I like it.
I think it's great, and I like the time frame too.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, then we'll look for a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2024-06 moderate income housing amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Councilman Howerson.
Aye.
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 Back to the fire department. Discussion for the side by side.
Well, this is Angie's.
This is, I'll start
I
this.
wanted to bring this back up, so that's true.
I do.
Angie, let's have it.
Okay, so I already discussed this with you guys a little bit last time, but on the 4th of July, we went up on the mountain and we were driving on a trail on a side by side, and it solidified to me the need for for our city. Because
Start a fire?
no, I thankfully did not start a fire, but it was a rough ride, and we have so much terrain. I cannot imagine trying to get somebody on or off a mountain without having one of those, quite frankly. So, and like I said last time, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what our discussion just was. If there was a situation where one of our firefighters was able, they were close by and able to rescue or help somebody, but they didn't have the equipment to do so, I really think that that would affect them mentally. I think that would stay with them. So to me, it makes sense. Even if this vehicle doesn't last 15 years, even if it's 10 years, and that makes it $6,500 a year, I think that's a good investment for our city and our residents. So I am actually wondering why it's taken us so long to do this.
I agree with Angie, 100%. The only question I had, Derek, is that quote for a Polaris, and is Polaris our only option in this case? Because I know there are cheaper brands, but I don't know if they're as good.
The reason, when we looked at them in the past year, when we discussed the side by side, based on the research I did, Polaris were the most well built. They do a lot to wow, I'm just blank, to beef up the suspension on them, because they're going to be carrying water, they're going to be carrying extra people. And I just felt, based on the prices that were out there, that Polaris was giving us the best bang for our buck, and they have the most consistent delivery times. And the other thing that Polaris does versus some of the other companies that supply them is, I don't know, this was big in our public safety committee, is that's the package deal. Whereas the other companies that sit down and design and do the build process.
Mhm.
And I like how this is a proven model that we can just pull the trigger on versus having to go through the full design process and piecemeal it together.
Okay. that was my only question, is if we had to export other brands. Thank you though. Yeah, I'm with Angie though. I think this is a no-brainer in my view. We have the terrain and the city layout that I think requires it, and I don't think this cost is prohibitive for us, in my opinion.
So as I mentioned in the last budget when it was changed, I agree that we need one. Where are we getting the money? Can't just say we need it and let's get it. I don't know where we're getting the money with what we, I just said, hey, let's push this off to the next budget year, was my comment. Where do we get the money? Because I really don't know.
So it was already in our approved tentative budget, correct? Yes.
Yes, that was in the negative. We were pulling from general fund.
So I would still think it would be appropriate to take from general fund, actually.
Okay.
I honestly,
That's your answer.
it
right?
really
Yeah.
is, honestly, because you look, I mean, look right here, look at all that terrain. Our city is surrounded by inaccessible areas.
I
Okay,
don't
okay.
disagree with the need. I don't
But that
disagree
side by side is not gonna go up that hill right there and fight that fire.
No.
No, it's not gonna go fight a fire, but it's gonna help our personnel get up and down.
Well, you're not gonna
And
take a side by
supplies.
side up there either. If somebody gets hurt up on that hillside, you're gonna pack them off, or I see this being used more if you need it up on the, even up on the canal road. You know, we could take one of our other apparatuses up on there, up where you were riding your ATV, they could go up there. The only down a trail, they could not go down a trail. But there's, from what I understand, looking into this, there are other cities that are looking at other options, and one of the other options is that they're making e-bikes. They've got saddlebags on them that carry all the medical supplies that they need, that will get into a tighter area than a side-by-side will. And the cost is way less for that than it is for the side-by-side. So I would like to address that option as well. Derek, would you like to say anything about that?
He's not gonna carry someone on an e-bike.
No, you're not gonna be able to carry anybody out.
I know that's his
That's
first
the only thing you
comment.
can't- That's the only thing you could not do, would be to carry somebody out, but you could still get to them with emergency help.
Yeah, we can
With
get,
an e-bike.
get to them quicker, but once you're there, it's how to get them out. South Davis Metro has them, and Cole can talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that.
we got two of them last year to make rescue up near the park. And they carry some trauma equipment, they carry an AED, they carry some airway stuff. But still the issue is once we get to where they're at, we either have to come up with a game plan of how we're gonna get them out, and one of those is we call another resource in to then come get them, so then it's delayed. So for search and rescue, I was just on a call up Dual Creek. One Sunday, Friday, I don't know, one of these last couple days. We were 4.5 hours in. It took us 20, 30 minutes to, well, it took us 45 minutes to get the patient. Fire guys were there 20 minutes before that without equipment to pack them down. Once we loaded that person and started walking down, it took us 40 minutes to get a half a mile. And then we ended up calling for a helicopter and flying them off.
Would that side by side get up there though?
No, Dual Creek is, no, it wouldn't have, but that's
Okay.
what I'm saying. So the patient packaging and transport for the trails and everything that we have 2 side-by-sides currently for Metro Fire as well that have patient transport on them, and we transported the patient off the B like 2 weeks ago. So.
Tag team.
Later.
Sorry. Any other questions on that?
I don't have a
Big thing is
question, but
just get them out.
the issue that I still have with it though is that while it is, I think it'd be a good tool for you, or for the fire department, I should say. But I'm 100% with Blair on this. This needs to be pushed until next year. We've already spent quite a bit. We're below in budget areas that we need it. I mean, we're literally talking about, this is half the recreation budget that we know we don't get next year because of the sales with Parsons. That's half of it. And all of these sports themselves pay for themselves. So we've got a big bill from that coming. We've got a big bill coming for a new apparatus. We've got a big bill, well, kind of, that one is already in the case, but we're getting to the point where it's awful easy to spend other people's money. And if it was just, hey, we've got plenty of it, I'd tell you to go out and go get two, make them gold color. But right now, we don't have that. Maybe next year, that would give it to us. And if this was a critical need, saying that, you know, we've got people dropping off the cliff all day, yeah, we need to hurry and do it. Right now, you guys, as the incredible firefighters you are, work hard at your job and are able to handle it. And if that means that we need to rely on you for the next year while we try to get the rest of the budget under control, I have faith in you guys. It's not something that I wish I could get you everything. I wish I could get you a helicopter with 2 drones flying right next to it. And I think that would help us a lot, but we don't have it. And that's just my opinion. I'm a little stingier, but I do think you guys deserve it. I just think next year would be a better opportunity to look at it.
Wayne, I have one more question to you. Sorry, I'm so sorry. But Derek, do you feel like it'd be appropriate for you to explain the situations that we talked about the other night? When it would have been helpful?
Yes. We had a call where someone decided to take their own life, and they decided to do it up the hillside. And we ended up having, this was years ago, just to be clear, we ended up having 2 firefighters get injured trying to get that person off the mountain. And a side-by-side would have made a world of difference in that. And I know I already talked about it in the retreat, the girl going into the river last spring. We couldn't run fast enough to try to find that girl. And so, yeah, I get that it's a heavy ask, and that our citizens have done a lot for the fire department and do a lot of heavy lifting for us. But to act like it's a rare need, I think is not giving it true credit to what it is. We could have used it today, to be honest.
And I'm sure you guys could use it and would use it. But my concern is still, this is the priority of how much you need it, not necessarily the whether or not you would be able to impact other people's lives, because we can't measure that.
Right.
You know, and so it comes down to, okay, are we going to be responsible and look at this and say, okay, here's where we can do it. We can't do it now. If I'm running my home budget right now, it doesn't matter. All our first level needs have to be taken care of first. And I mean, I'm not trying to be callous at all about it. I have 100% respect for your guys, and I believe that they can handle just about any situation out there. But at the same time, we still have to be responsible with the budget.
I agree. And I think I've made my position clear over the years that I understand there's only so much pie, and I'm okay being told no if we truly can't afford it. And honestly, and maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot by even saying this, like, to me, the difference between the Quint and the side-by-side, I have no standard to point to saying, yes, we absolutely need a Quint. All I can give you is either theoretical situations or situations that actually happened where a side-by-side would have made a world of difference. And so if the city's in a position where they can't afford the side-by-side, then that's something we live with.
Dave, how much did we pay for the side-by-side for recreation? Curtis's little one.
I'd have to look that up.
Wasn't it like?
But it wouldn't.
But
be
it's a total different.
Totally
Right.
different thing.
Yeah, I know. And it doesn't have the full capability of carrying people and doing any of those other kind of things on it that,
It was around 30.
was it the new one?
And I just,
Because
I
this
know,
one's 64. So, yeah.
I know this isn't the end all be all, but I mean, obviously it's not going to go all the way up there, but there's areas where it could reach, right? And I feel like it would be a fantastic tool for them. If we had any, and this is not going to prevent injuries, but if we have any workers' comp claims, that's going to be more expensive than the side-by-side. Because our workers' comp insurance goes up.
You know, one back injury costs
Yeah,
$40,000.
yeah, and it goes up, it changes your points for 3 years.
So.
Even better. I'm serious. I'm just saying.
That's great. It's not going up 64. So all I'm trying to say is that let's put it off for a year.
Okay, and that's your opinion, and I totally respect that, Joel, but I just feel like we could absolutely use it this year too.
And in full transparency, like I know we focus a lot on the rescues because there's a human component there. It's gonna get its most use on fires like we had today. Like getting in places instead of us humping hose, laying 150 feet of progressive lay, you drive your side by side up.
How much water does it carry?
The one we're looking at carries 100 gallons of water.
Quietly.
I'm just waiting for my opportunity.
Yeah, Wayne's got plenty.
I
to
know,
say.
I've cut him off. I'm sorry, Wayne.
I just want to walk through some of the logic I went through, questions I asked myself. At the end of the day, is it an apparatus that I think the city could benefit from? Yes. But I asked myself, what's the urgency this year? Yes, we've had some events. We've always had a river going through the city. We've always had the mountains. What's changed or what's putting the urgency right now? And the only thing I could come up with in my logic is growth. We have more people, we have more demands of recreational activities. We've got a new trail. And now my mind started going to, okay, what we're supplying or what we're providing is a service beyond this community. We have a transitory population that uses some of our resources, the trail. So we've got people from Riverdale, people from Uinta, people from South Ogden. The use that you talked about, we had an accident just up the canyon. So Morgan, or Mountain View, Morgan County. And I got to thinking, why not put this off a year? And during that time, seek cooperation and or involvement from Davis County, Weber County, and maybe even the cities, Uinta, Riverdale, South Ogden, see if they want to participate. And maybe we'll say, hey, we'll pay 50% of this cost. Can we get you other agencies to chip in? Because there's a benefit to your community as well for what we're doing here. We're just centrally located. I still think we need it. I just don't understand the urgency of right now, given all the resources, if we can wait a year and with that year, maybe provide some other revenues to come in to offset our costs. So I'm of the opinion, not now, do it next year, but let's see if we can maximize the benefit from other communities and get some support from other communities.
Just to answer a few of your statement or questions or address some of your statements. We reached out to Davis County to see if they would help us as part of a search and rescue grant. We were told no. I reached out to Riverdale City. Riverdale City's going through a lot of turmoil right now because I told them, like, you own a lot of this trail. Let's go 50-50, 60-40. Let's do some shared costs here. Their fire chief position is currently in flux, and with the consolidation conversations taking place, I had the door slammed in my face with every single one of those chiefs. They're like, we don't even know if we're going to exist as a city or as a fire department, so we're not willing to commit. My conversation with Weber Fire District, since they now cover Uinta, was their chief's retiring on Thursday, and he did not want to commit resources until their new chief was appointed. And I have every intention of approaching their new fire chief as soon as he is officially their fire chief and saying, hey, let's talk about the trail system in Uinta. So I have approached all those avenues.
I think, in my opinion, the urgency isn't that that's a new urgency. It's that how many times have we, or how long have we put this off? Just like the building we're building, like that probably should have been done like 10 years ago, and we never addressed it until recently. So in my mind, that's where the urgency is that this is just one more thing that's on the docket of things that previous councils have just not addressed over and over and over again, or it just wasn't brought up and it wasn't addressed, whatever the situation is. I don't have the total history, but that, in my mind, that's where this lands. I'm with Angie. I think we can pull from the general fund and it not be a big deal. I don't think the cost is prohibitive enough to do that. I think the tax increase that we are going to initialize for this coming year more than pays for the gaps that I saw, unless I'm missing something. Maybe feel free to correct me, but that added another 80-something thousand to our budget in revenue. I don't know. I don't think the cost is great enough to where it's that big a deal personally. So
I can also address one of your statements if you'd like. The reason last year was the first year that we even discussed a side-by-side is when I became fire chief, I sat down and I went through all the NFPA standards, all the ISO standards, all the Bureau of EMS standards, and made a list of everywhere we were deficient. And I prioritized that list of deficiencies, and I've brought stuff to council over the course of the last 7 years as we've knocked those things off the list. And like I mentioned earlier, like I have nothing to point to as far as a standard for a side-by-side. And so until I addressed all the standards that we weren't meeting, that's why you didn't hear about the side-by-side until last year, even though it's been a need. As far as quantifying urgency, you know, I'm not screaming the house is on fire or anything like that. It's just, that's why it's come when it's come. It's just based on prioritizing other things before I prioritize the side-by-side.
I would say too, one other thing, and Wayne kind of touched on it, where we have these trails that we're, you know, encouraging people and welcoming them to use. There's costs that are associated with that. And we had that conversation years ago in the Parks Committee when we said, how, you know, we have these trails, how do we fund it? But we have these new trails that are connected. And when we need, to me, it's almost akin to having a mower at the parks. We have all these retention and detention basins. We require them to put grass in. Now we have X amount of new acres and we have to have new mowers to accommodate that. For our Parks Department, this is just another tool for our safety for people to access that.
Just a point of clarification. I'm not trying to debate with you, Angie,
Sure.
but just a clarification. We own the parks and therefore we own the maintenance of those. We don't own that trail. It just happens to come through our city boundary.
Right, but same
Trails, a
difference.
county trail or a multi-county trail. So that's why I say we need to get the counties to participate for the safety aspect. And we're willing to support that through our reach of that trail by doing this. That's why I think the conversation going back to the Davis County or going back to the county to support that.
Yes, we don't physically own the trail from a city standpoint and some of these county areas. But from an EMS response and a third authority having jurisdiction, it does not matter at all. We as a city own those areas geographically because they are part of our response district. So we are responsible for the EMS and fire response to those areas because it is part of our response jurisdiction.
Don't disagree. I just think they have some ownership as well in regards to how we support those.
I agree, and that's why I reached out to the county. I mean, Dave can tell you, we reached out to Search and Rescue. We've explored so many avenues to try to get joint funding on this. And timing has just been really bad based on what's happening at the south end of Weber County. And that may be true.
do you feel like the new fire chief that covers you into would be more like, do you know who that is?
I do.
Okay. Do you feel like he would be actually willing to do something?
I would hate to put words or speculate.
Yeah.
You know, for him. And I will be having that conversation with them. Like I said, their chief retires Thursday. And once the new chief is sworn in, I promise you I will be having that conversation with them.
I kind of doubt they were speculating here. If another city came to us and said, well, we service your people, we'd go, oh, but it's yours.
And
I don't know that we'd pay for it.
And that's a possibility as well. And I know my conversations with Riverdale, it was, okay, we'll support it, but is it at our station or your station? You know, so there's all this nuance to it, politically speaking. Oh, okay, well, South Weaver is going to pay 51%, so it stays at our station, or you get it 6 months out of the year, we get it 6 months out of the year. I mean,
well, you talked about those
Yeah.
mutual aid agreements we have, and you got one station's hazmat trained, and one station is this trained, and well, we could have this service that's where I see this happening. That's kind of the logic I was putting to it. That's it. That's just my logic. So welcome
Right.
to Wayne's World.
Yeah. We're just kind of on an island.
So what steps do we have left in the budget?
For
Just to take,
from here to
Mhm.
the end. The truth in taxation hearing will be August 13th. And then adoption of the final budget will be the meeting after that, end of August. That's when the final budget's adopted. So the tentative budget is what we work on off of until the final budget is adopted. Those are the only final steps for budget adoption is selection of the property tax rate based on any comments we receive in the truth in taxation hearing. Specific to the amount of fund balance, right? Because this is an item that comes out of the capital projects fund, which is simply one-time money. It's an amount of money that sits there and waits till we do projects, right? As of June 30th last year, which is the last audited financial statement, right, that we have until this year's audit ends, there was $1.18 million in the capital projects fund balance. The tentative budget that was adopted that includes the 64,000 for the side-by-side is taking 112,000 out of fund balance to do capital projects. So if we were to pull the side-by-side out, it would reduce the 112 down to minus the 64,000. And that's what would be out of the fund balance from the tentative budget.
no, we didn't.
It came after, the removal came after the
Came
adoption of the tentative budget.
It was during the comments on the public hearing.
Is any amount of that million plus already designated for other projects that we just haven't started yet?
Well, we have a very large project we
Yes.
kicked down the
Well,
road. And that leads me to the same thing.
Yeah.
Again, I get it's a need, but we also have needs for sidewalks and things that I would love to have to make every kid and every person want to have a walk down South Weaver Drive or on other streets, have a safe sidewalk. It's, you make these hard choices. It's not just a side by side. We make those safety choices with. It's a street, it's a sidewalk, it's all sorts of other things that we make decisions on this budget that are safety and it's not just the fire department and EMS that are safety for these citizens.
Right.
And that's what stopped me from saying, we just kicked down a major project that is safety for our kids walking home from school on a street that has no sidewalks, and we're kicking it down the road, yet we're gonna go buy a side by side. That's why I said, let's just push it down the road. We're trying to come up with it. I get it. I agree with you on the $6,500 a year. I think it's totally worth the money. I just don't know that now's the time. So.
Can I just add one more thing that isn't to sway the decision, but I feel it's thanks that is needed. I just want to thank Farmington City because they have let us borrow their side by side on dozens of occasions, and I think they need some recognition there because there is a team entity to what we do in the fire service, and they have big good team players with the tour of Utah, with South Weaver Days. We have used their side by side lots, and I just feel like they deserve some credit for being willing to share that with us at no cost.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Let me just say, I think maybe I came across that I don't see a need for this. I do, I'm fully on board for this. I just don't see right now how we can finance it. Earlier in our meeting today, some red flags were brought to our attention from Councilman Windsor on shortfalls that we're looking at in our budget and how we're going to cover costs. And then now here we're talking about buying this side to side. I think we need to take a closer look at where we are because we're going to have some serious problems here with the shortfalls that we've got, and we better address those. And I'm 100% agree with what Blair said on these other projects. Where do where do you draw the line and where do you spend the money? Because there's other safety needs that I feel are just as important as this one, if maybe not more important, that we've kicked down the road. So,
And there's nothing saying we can't, if we find a way to pay for it, we can amend the budget and put it in, because we all are in agreement that we need it.
yeah.
But the minute we put it in there, staff brings it back for approval. The minute that budget hits, and I'm not, no offense, but that's what they do. They're checking off the boxes to get it done, or it's not going to get done because that fiscal year's gone in a hurry. So.
All right.
Okay. So what do we need on this? Anything?
It's just a
Just a
discussion.
discussion.
Okay. Next item, new business. Anyone have any new business to bring up? Dave, do you have anything? Council reports, begin with Blair. Why don't you start this time?
I don't have a whole lot to report. The Public Works facility, their contracts are getting, Dave has sent the contract to Valley Design. They're moving forward. The site work is continuing on. I was there yesterday. It's moving along pretty well, so there's not a lot to update you on there.
Okay. Angie.
I just had a question about our Country Fair Days float entry for city council. I'm assuming we're still doing that.
So
Have you been meeting with Country Fair Days?
I've only met with them one time, so.
Do you want to ask them to, do you want to get us in a float, or do you want me to get us in as an entry for the parade?
It sounds like you're volunteering, so I'll let
Okay,
you take that.
cool. I will do that.
Unless someone else already has. No? Okay.
I
Okay.
think they just pencil us in.
I think-
I think
I
they do
think
too,
so
but I
too.
just
They just
want to
yeah.
verify.
Good to make
I'll reach out to Lacey. Okay. Who's
Who's bringing the armament?
I was just asking. Are you in town?
Yes, I'm in town. And yes, I plan on doing the same trailer truck. And Shaylee is already working on candy. We talked about it. So.
Perfect. Okay. And last thing, I don't know if any of you have looked very closely at the agenda, but they have not penciled us in. They've put us in on the agenda for 15 minutes.
Yep, I saw that.
So
Tell them to pencil us off.
For what?
remember last year, they put us on for Saturday
Yeah,
and
they
had us
the
do
pie
15
eating
minutes.
contest, and it was
I don't
fro-
want to come up with
it
something
was
again.
Frozen pie. And we couldn't.
We had to eat a frozen pie.
Yes.
The only two that didn't were you and Haley.
Haley allegedly beat me, but I don't think she did.
I think we can forego our 15 minutes of fame.
It's already on the agenda.
Well,
That's okay.
Oh my
Oh, I'm out
gosh,
of
you
town.
guys are party poopers. We're on there and I'll figure something out. Okay. I guess that's that.
figure something out that you can have.
Yeah, well, I need 6 people, so
Just one.
We'll be there to support you.
thank you.
Front row.
Yeah, you will.
In
Okay.
spirit.
That's all I have.
Joe.
Nothing new. Although I do want to really bring up again, that was very disappointing to have those people come over and tell about the experience they had. So
That's our neighbors.
yeah.
Nothing new for me. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple items. The gravel pit, we had a meeting on Monday with the 2 pit liaisons. Can report they are continually to be vigilant in their efforts. There was a comment about, I guess people from the public, the city are saying they're not using the watering trucks, speaking with the Sticker Parsons pit. And they responded that they just can't run them continuously throughout the day because they become mud tracks and mud roads. Once they get enough water down, they've got to stay off of it until it evaporates and or dries and becomes blowable again, and then they go back out. So about every 2 hours, once it's soaked, they get back out there. So they may be looking at the time where they're resting and the roads have already been, and the piles have already been watered. The aerial water line is up and operating. They've, I'll say played, but they've interchange the nozzles to get a variance of droplet size depending upon the wind. Wind speed has a great deal to do with, if it's too fine of a mist, the wind just kind of vaporizes it. It can't get to the ground. So they got to get the right droplet size with the right wind speed. And I don't know how they do that, but they continually play with it. They're actively monitoring that. We did have a conversation about the beautification of the hillside. We noticed some of the vegetation has been dying or dead, and we asked them that they address that as a secondary item, but it is the entrance to the city, and we wanted to make sure that the city had a very presentable entrance. The berm.
Yeah, the dead trees on the berm.
Dead trees on the berm. We did broach the subject with, well, Saker Parsons, their contract expires in 25. And they are open to beginning negotiations, maybe January. We'll have a year's worth of time to enter into negotiations of reestablishing an agreement or what that agreement might be. So I'm sure we'll have some discussions with the council, some things to look forward to or things we want to incorporate as I assume the liaison or the gravel pit committee will be the ones negotiating that contract, unless the mayor, you want to set up a different body in which to negotiate that. But the nice thing was we kind of leveraged the representative from Geneva Pit, who 20 some years ago, it was, heck no, we're not going to do an agreement, to this person was, I will take that message back to his manager. We might get Geneva in the discussions. Maybe we get a cooperation agreement with each pit, or maybe a 3-party agreement with the pits on how we want to manage those. So there was some open dialogue to that, although I say tongue in cheek, he was a newbie. He didn't know what he could commit to and not commit to. So we kind of leveraged that, and hopefully he'll go back, and we'll see if Geneva enters into those discussions. But we kind of paved the way for a year from now, or not a year from now, but January to begin those discussions over the next year. And the other item, the Finance Admin Committee was unable to meet today. We wanted to give our new employee an opportunity to get his feet on the ground before we engage with him on some of the activities we're working on. A new meeting will be set up, and we're going to continue our discussions. We're getting to the point where the reserve policies is to a point where we want to get it close to bring it back to the council for discussion. And then based on the discussion, we'll see what the next steps are, if we go back to committee or if we bring it forward for an action item. That's what I have to report.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne. Shaylee, if you got anything you'd like to say about our activities and events?
Yeah, so our next concert in the park is on the 25th of July. It's also our kid entrepreneur market. So we're still having kids who are signing up for it. The registration, I think, is open until the 20th, but if we need to push that back more, we can. So if you guys know of any kids that would be interested in selling stuff, like, definitely send them our way. We would love to have them. I think that's all I have. So.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, Shaylee. I've got one proposal that I'd like to make for the council to consider, and that is Lance has been very, very, very busy filling 2 positions. As we all know, we're lacking in 1 position, and he's been overworked. And we do have a new person that is coming on board. And appreciate Lance for all that he has done in trying to fill those 2 positions, everything that Dave is asking to do, why he's been willing to do. So what I would like is for the next 2 months to give our code committee a break, give Lance a break from working on code, and let him kind of hit other areas where it looks to me like we need a little more emphasis on. He can work on those areas and not have to spend time working on code. So if it was all right with the council, I would like to, for 2 months, let him
agreed.
kind of pull things back together and
Absolutely.
get things going. Is that all right with everyone?
It's all right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It will just cost you $65,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Done. It was that easy.
Otherwise, okay, next item. There is no closed session for tonight, so we're all completed. We'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.